All right. Woo! Welcome back to Stay Tuned. I'm Tony Angelo, and I just picked up what I think is probably the best race car on the planet. Every red-blooded American man and woman who's into cars wants to go racing, and this is the car you should be buying to do it. There's no handle here. How am I supposed to? There we go. There it is. Find yourself a cheap C5 Corvette. So we are at our storage facility, and this is the C5 I just picked up. I believe it's probably the cheapest manual, mostly complete C5 in the country. I paid $6,000 for this sucker. It's a 1999 regular coupe manual C5. So it was at some point kind of rowdy and kind of like maybe a little bit hood. Speaking of hood, somebody cut a giant hole in there with, like, I don't know, an angry beaver or some kind of hatchet for a 5.3 with a big old turbocharger on this sucker. So it was like cheap Chinese turbo, making a bunch of power. You can see it's still got these spiky things, maybe sideshow style, whatever you want to call it. But it was pretty wild. You come over here, spark plugs in the exhaust, always a sign of a proper engine tune. But yeah, obviously, when you're looking to buy the cheapest thing you can find in a certain kind of car, you're going to give up a little bit as far as originality, maybe overall condition. But this is a straight C5. The car came with a turbo 5.3. I'm sure it was iron block. They were having a blast with it. So this is what I assume happened. A guy that was pretty into cars bought this thing. Oh, a turbo C5, and it was probably an absolute riot. Then it exploded, put all the rod bearings on the outside of the car. Window of the block, it was a fiery explosion, and he decided, oh, I'm gonna keep on rocking, but let me put the right motor back in this thing. He bought an LS1 for like a 2000 Camaro or something like that. Basically the same engine that would have come in this Corvette. He put on the Corvette oil pan, he put a clutch on it, and he was thinking about putting it all together and realized it was kind of out of his depth. It's been sitting, this project, I didn't just sell the whole thing, and that's where we come in. At one point, this thing was listed at $9 grand, which I was like, definitely no. But you know, I keep tabs on a lot of different cars online, and then I saw it come down to $7,500 in one day. Now, when somebody makes a big leap down in one day, that person is trying to move that car. So I looked at the ad with a little more scrutiny, and I realized it had everything you see here: the car, the LS1, the hood, you know, pretty complete car, plus an aftermarket ECU and harness. So I told him immediately, I just said, hey man, if you keep that brand new aftermarket ECU and harness, which should be easy to resell, I'll give you $6,000. And he was like, immediately, yes, that's a deal. So we got moving, we got hustling over to Jersey, got out there and picked up this sucker. And it is a very decent car. Interior is complete. It smells pretty funky, which is standard on just about every car we buy. It's got these kind of like creamy brown leather seats, which is not my favorite, but everything's here. I hate when there's like a modern car that's been blown apart and you know you're never gonna find all the parts. You're never gonna be able to make it look halfway decent. My intention for this car is like a track/street car, so I wouldn't have been like too heartbroken, but I like it that we have everything. And what is great about these C5s is that they do everything really well. They're like the Swiss Army knife of cars. They go road racing, killer, drag racing, drifting. We'll probably do a little bit of everything with this car because it's just so capable. The first thing we're gonna do is get our hands on that LS1 and turn that sucker up to 11. We're gonna make a bunch more power with it. We're not just gonna leave it stock and throw it in there. This is Stay Tuned. Get serious. I'm keeping those spark plugs in the exhaust, by the way. If I can make this thing shoot fire, why not? We just pulled over, we're starving, and as you know, Stay Tuned is a pizza team with a racing problem, but we spend a fortune on pizza, and today we're gonna do a little bit better. I've got my free Upside app downloaded where you get real offers to earn cash back. We pulled over at a local restaurant, Giovanni's. They give 19% cash back up to $10. So me and Bob are gonna grab a slice, and it is going to earn us real money. The app is super easy to use. I've got it on my phone. I just put where we are in the maps section, and it'll tell you what offers are all around you. And top Upside earners can earn up to $300 a month. And if you want to know what it's like, go to the QR code that's right here, or click the link in the description, download it for yourself, and use the code STAYTUNED, and you'll get an extra 25 cents back for each gallon of gas on your first fill up. Let's get some pizza. All right, it's that easy. Pay with your debit or credit card. Get yourself a couple of slices, stick it in the app, and you'll get real cash in your account. It's Pretty easy way to go. Okay, so this is the LS1 that came with my C5 Corvette. It's out of a 99 or 2000 Camaro. We ran the numbers on the block. I think it's 325 horsepower, which is a good amount of horsepower. We got to bump that way, way up. What's cool is it's an actual 5.7 liter LS1. If you watch this channel, we're always running like truck blocks and 5.3s and whatever we can get our hands on. This is a legit LS1, so it's a little bit fancy here for stay tuned, but it's not going to stop us. We're going to try to add 100 horsepower to this sucker through like pretty affordable mods and you know, heads and cam and get this thing really ripping. So this is the recipe to add 100 real horsepower to our LS1. Over here we've got the new Summit Cathedral port heads. These are sweet and reasonably affordable. You're looking at a 202 intake, a 160 exhaust valve, just like all the good classic small block muscle cars from back in the day. This is a 210cc intake port. Nice beefy exhaust port. And we're gonna run the Summit Stage 2 billet LS camshaft. Overall duration, 275, 287. It's gonna have some chop, it's gonna have some mid-range. It's gonna make that Corvette do everything we want it to do. And overall, I think it's gonna add 100 horsepower. We're gonna engine dyno this sucker after we get this thing built up, and I'm hoping to see 425 horsepower, which is serious. Let's find out. I'm gonna start tearing this thing down. It didn't come with an intake manifold at all, which is fine. The LS1 is probably the worst stock intake for these motors, so we're gonna get rid of that sucker and start tearing these apart. I love the LS motors because number one, they go together really simply and really logically. They have reusable O-rings almost everywhere. They basically never leak. They make a ton of power. Obviously, they are everywhere. Enthusiasts drag truck motors out of junkyards every day and put big old turbos on them and send them down the drag strip. And that's one reason, and one reason only, and it's because they work. So if you're gonna holler about me putting an LS in a Corvette, I don't know, do it, I guess. It seems fun. So this is an unknown engine. We don't know what kind of miles are on it, what kind of shapes on it. This will be my first look at inside the valve cover here. It looks very clean. Looks like maintenance was probably done pretty regularly. You know, I've seen all sorts of garbage in there, and this one's not too bad. I'm gonna keep tearing into it. We're gonna do a little bit of refresh. We'll probably do new oil pump, new cam bearings, along with the cylinder heads and all the bad boy camshaft. And we'll be rocking and rolling in no time. It is the middle of June here. Feels like I'm inside a camel's mouth, or just got covered camel spit. I'm on camels today pretty hard. I don't know. I'm gonna try to drink a lot of water, stay hydrated. I don't expect these sleeves to stay on this shirt too long. Let's tear this thing apart. So we just yanked the stock LS1 cylinder heads off, and we're looking at the condition of this engine. Nothing looks terrible. There's some carbon on the tops of the pistons, in the stock heads. I'm seeing a bunch of junk here in the water passages. I'm probably just using the wrong coolant, kind of gooing it all up. Turn everything into goo. Nothing too crazy though. We're gonna run it, that's for sure. Anytime you get in here, you can clean the tops of these pistons off with something nice and gentle. I'll obviously pull these old school, this LS1 style head gasket off. It's kind of got that crushable material. We're gonna put a multi-layer metal gasket on it. I can see the crosshatch still in some spots. That's the original machining marks, so we know that it really hasn't been ripped on too long or too hard. We like that. And obviously I'm looking for like big gouges or big, huge ridge at the top of the cylinder, and I'm not really seeing it or feeling it. So all this feels pretty good. You're gonna make a bunch more horsepower. I'm gonna drive you with reckless abandon. You're gonna love it. We're gonna be best friends forever. You can see there's still a bunch of the old head gasket material stuck to the block. We're gonna clean that off. You can do it with a Scotch-Brite disc if you want, like a little roll-lock on a die grinder. I want to do it old school, just with a flat razor blade. I feel like you get a little bit more feel. You can kind of control where it's going to go, and it doesn't go everywhere. You can, believe it or not, wreck this mating surface with a razor blade if you were like dig in all crazy. So take it easy, scrape nice, scrape it nice. So we have done the razor blade scrape on this engine block. It came out looking great. No real issues popping up just yet. I'm gonna hit the tops of the pistons with a Scotch-Brite wheel. I've moved it from the clean room that we have here at Stay Tuned, because we are a professional engine building shop, over to here, the dirty area of the shop. This is the dirty wing of the facility. I'm gonna just knock any carbon off the tops of these pistons. Anything that looks like it's lingering here, I might just brush up against it nice and easy. Don't take too much material out of here because it's got to seal the head gasket and there's a lot of pressure there. So I'm just going to blaze through this and then we'll talk about tearing it more apart. We'll make an appointment with the director of the clean side of the shop, make sure we can get an appointment and get back over there and get this thing assembled. So instead of getting super fancy aftermarket rockers, one thing you can do to make your factory rockers work a lot better and not explode and cause your engine all sorts of pain is to upgrade the factory style needle bearing with basically it's a bushing and a center pivot that is unable to explode and fall into 50,000 pieces. So just make sure, it's called a trunnion upgrade for your factory rockers. It works great. This one's from Summit. A bunch of people make them. This one's super easy to install. A little bit of time with a press or a vise and you will be in good shape. It's just a nice little bit of insurance, because when these things go bad, they rain needle bearings all throughout your engine, and as you can imagine, that's not cool. So I've got the LS1 all cleaned up, the tops of the pistons and the top of the block. It looks pretty fantastic, no real issues. I just came through with the Scotch-Brite puck, cleaned the tops of the pistons, cleaned around the fire ring area, and then I came through with a little bit of diesel fuel, sprayed it on the mating surface, and just scrubbed it by hand. Same, again, just some red Scotch-Brite. Turned out awesome. You don't want to linger on any one spot too much or remove too much material. Scotch-Brite, luckily, is pretty weak and shouldn't screw you up too bad if you do hammer on one spot, but do your best to not do that. You can see here the worst of it is a little bit of corrosion and metal degradation right on the face here down at the bottom, but it's really fine and I don't think it's going to be an issue. Translation: look good, clean good, feel good, motor good, make power big. All right, we can keep digging into this thing now. I'm going to flip it over, pull the balancer off, pull the pan off, we'll get the camshaft out of there and start seeing what we're up against and how those cam bearings look. I am trying to pull off the harmonic damper balancer on this sucker, and the only kit I have is a installer, de-installer kit that I've got because I rented it from a local auto parts store one and then I forgot to return it and then they charged my credit card. So it's not what I would call the best. It does have this little guy which locks in pretty well to the little tangs. Little tangs, that's what I call my kids. Over here. And it gives you these little rods, but it doesn't go in far enough. I try to push rod with limited success. So Barb's trying to fix us up something with the old TIG welder over there. We've got a plan, it's gonna work. But we've got to get something that's gonna hold on to the crankshaft and let me push and yank this balancer off. Let's see what happens.
It's hot. So
Perfect.
maybe I'll touch it.
The ratchet?
The ratchet.
What's that?
I got it, I got it. Nice, beauty. All right, cool. All right, one issue we also found, again, I think we sort of, the previous owner kind of ran out of know-how. And he already put on the big Batwing C5 Corvette oil pan as Barb, started tearing it apart. Found the pickup tube installed properly. No O-ring.
think that's improper.
Well, that part was improper. No O-ring at the oil pump, so it would have had no suction. And as we all know, no suction is a no-go. That's a deal breaker.
For sure.
Yeah, bad news. So glad we got in here. We're gonna tear it apart. The chain looks pretty fresh. We'll see if it has a cam already. We're still gonna upgrade it to the one that we like, but let's get this sucker apart.
Hit it.
Oh, the lifters are in there, dog. Get them out of here.
That would.
We're just kidding. Just checking to see if you guys are paying attention. Stick that right there. The LS1 is a little bit different than like an old school small block. You have to take the heads off to get the lifters out. That's why if you're doing an in-the-car cam swap, believe it or not, there's like a wooden tool that people sell. You put your cam out, you shove this tool
dowels.
in. Yeah,
I
you
did it.
dowel it in, and then
So
quick,
easy.
throw the new cam in.
You know who has it?
Who?
Ace Hardware.
Oh, tight. Anyway, so we're just gonna pull the lifters out, and now we can pull out our camshaft, which is obviously the thing you do first. All right, moment of truth, pulling out what I think might be a very stock camshaft. Oh, it looks pretty healthy. Yeah. Yeah, it is in fact a stock camshaft. It looks like it's in really good shape. We'll throw it on a shelf in case we need it for something. And we're gonna keep on rocking. I'm seeing a lot of copper
Are you?
in these bearings here, Barb.
Yep.
So we are gonna dig in and replace these cam bearings. It's just good insurance. I can see a ton of copper on these. This is some unknown motor that we got from some random guy who may or may not have been out of his depth repairing this car. So just looking at it, I see a lot of copper here. We're gonna take the hour maybe and replace these suckers. We've got the tools. We've got some talent. We'll be fine.
All right.
All right, if you are going to do one of these junkyard refreshes, it is totally worth it to do the cam bearings in an LS motor. It can completely screw you. You can wind up with no oil pressure, and that's no fun. And you know, especially once you've assembled everything, it just kind of, it's a pain in the butt, but it's worth doing. So we're gonna do it now. You gotta pull off the rear cover and the front, and I think we're gonna lay this thing upside down. You have to get at this thing from all angles. We've got this installer, de-installer tool from Summit. It's totally affordable. A set of cam bearings is like 45 bucks. You should do it. Like back in the day when you could get a LS1 with 30,000 miles on it, sure, but this thing is 20 years old now, so it's it needs it. What more? Oh yeah, excuse me. 25 years old. This thing is so old, Leonardo DiCaprio won't date it. Yeah, we did this once or twice. We learned the hard way. We took a 5.3 from the yard, slammed a cam in it, put it on the dyno. It made 11 PSI of oil pressure. We scratched our heads for a while. We did it again. Same story. Then we bought this thing, put in some cam bearings, and all was well. Just date somebody your own age, DiCaprio. Just get it together. So the cam obviously lives above the crankshaft. It has a hole in it that delivers all the oil to that camshaft bearing. And you have to make sure that you get your cam bearing indexed in exactly the right way, that this hole will get oil from the motor and then lubricate the camshaft. If that doesn't happen, you're still in bad shape. So we have this Summit tool, this cam knocker, this bearing knocker they call it. We will knock them out and then very carefully come through here. There's still a crankshaft pistons and rods in here, and kind of finagle them just right, make sure they're lined up, and start knocking them in. First thing we're gonna do is knock them all out. And this is just for LS, so it fits just like that. A great way to support Stay Tuned and Look Fresh is to grab some of our merch. There's a link right here and one in the description. We've got our We're Gonna Lose the Shop shirt, the original Stay Tuned, Angelo's Garage Gym, our Stay Tuned trucker hats. And if you're on the Stay Tuned Pizza Squad premium membership level, you get a sweet 20% discount. So get over there and get some gear on. And we appreciate you guys like crazy. Thank you so much. Oh, I have pulled the cam sensor out because it would have broken by now. If it's a Gen 3. There she goes. That's one. So now what? We're gonna
Fish it out from the top.
fish it out of there from the top, yeah, or the side.
Yep.
All right. There you go. There's one. Like we said before. See all that copper? No bueno. No good. That's Spanish for not good. All right, I'm gonna knock the other 4 out. We'll keep on rocking. All right, I knocked all 5 out. Went pretty straightforward. You can see, if you look at them, they say General Motors right on them. These are the original 01 spec or 2000 spec. So it's time to get replaced. All right, we are getting ready to install our new set of Durabond cam bearings for this LS. Barb did the last set of these bad boys on my 5.3 LS. He's kind of leading the charge here. What we do know is that there are 2 holes in the bearing and only one of them needs to be lined up with the oil feed hole coming from the block. Kind of dealer's choice there, doesn't matter. But the bearings are slightly different. There are 3 different bearings, okay? One bearing goes in 1 and 5, one bearing goes in 2 and 4, and one bearing goes in 3. They are marked. They're also in position here, but you can look at them and say, oh, this is CH-1, so we know this goes on the outside. They've luckily, if we just don't overthink it and leave it in the box in the right spot, we'll be good. So this is really like a 2-person job because you have to line this thing up perfectly, and one person's gonna be 5 feet away on the end of this long cam knocker. So Barb's gonna line it up, I'm gonna do the knock and we're gonna get it done. So Barb's gonna hold that thing where it needs to be. I'm gonna feed this long pipe right on in there. The further it is from where from the outside where the bar is going in, the better. So we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, and then I'll come to the other side and we'll do 4, 5. Because there's this alignment cone, and the further you are, the straighter it's gonna be. Doctor?
Rotate it clockwise, like 3 degrees.
Your clockwise or my
Your
clockwise?
clockwise.
Okay.
Perfect, right there.
All right.
You got the correct one?
Obviously, make sure you use a judicious amount of assembly lube.
1. Yep.
It's just outsies, insies.
2.
Doesn't matter which way you're going. All right, am I good?
Yes. Hit. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Stop. One more. Stop. Perfect. Stop.
That's 1 out of 5. Here we go. Sweet. All right. We have knocked fresh set of cam bearings into my LS1. They look great. A little bit time consuming, but not too bad. We're going to hit the sack now, come back in the morning, hose this thing out with a ton of acetone and brake clean, and then we will assemble this bad boy. Right now it's time to crash. Well, it's 118 or 135 degrees outside here in Pennsylvania. We're back in Barb's office, AKA this parts room, the storeroom. It has one little AC unit that's rocking around the clock because, you know, trying to keep the parts cool, I guess. I don't know why that's our one AC unit, maybe Barb too. But we decided, let's put this LS together in here, get a little bit of relief from that heat because we're just gonna be bolting parts on this sucker, so let's do it. All right, I'm gonna start pulling off this valley cover. Not really gonna do anything special in here. Just wanna have a look at it. Like I said before, we're back in the parts room. It is hotter than Lucifer's taint out there, and it's starting to actually cool off in here, so I feel like this is a smart move. Lucifer's taint, if you use that as a band name, I would like at least a single or a t-shirt. You gotta yank out the knock sensors before this sucker will come off. What's nice is this is not a truck motor. It doesn't have displacement on demand. We don't have to worry about getting a different cover. We can just reuse this, save a couple of bucks, and that's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna reseal it since we have a full engine and gasket kit. already put the cam sensor back in? Nice, there she is. Nothing to really see here, but before we assemble this sucker, we've done our best to clean it out, so I will give this a quick wipe and get ready to rock. We are in a enclosed area, so I'm feeling about woozy enough to understand the jams of Lucifer's taint at this point. Once you've done that, you know it's certainly clean enough to reassemble. This motor has looked pretty good. I've got high hopes that we're going to be able to add 100 solid horsepower, which if you can add 100 horsepower to anything, it jams pretty good. You know, this was already a beastly, sort of high RPM, fun, killer. You know, when this thing came out in the Camaro, you know, theoretically, it wasn't a huge horsepower jump. You're talking about, I think the LT1's left with 275 or 285 with the cold air intake, and then these came in at like 320, but they have, you know, then you could take a 2000 Camaro back in the day, put an exhaust on it and a converter, and it would run 12s, which was astounding. This was like the beginning of new cars being wicked fast again, and they're really cool. So I've never had an LS1 in anything, and I'm excited to play with this one. Gonna start digging in. These are hard. Shouldn't sound like that. Okay, anything break? No, we're good? Okay. Might pop this sucker out from the top.
I love your assembly table.
Thank you. Do you want to go back out there?
No.
It's so hot, dude. You go to the floor's plywood. We could do that. Let's go to the floor. Meet me down here.
I thought the floor was lava.
No, that's Rutledge's show.
Oh, God.
It's a heater, though. People love that.
It's all the way in there. I don't think it goes over.
That'll do it. All right, let's get rolling here. Now it's time to make some horsepower. We're going to start talking camshaft. This is the Summit Racing full billet camshaft we have decided to install. This is Summit's Stage 2 camshaft. We're looking at 600 lift, intake, and exhaust. It's 113-degree lobe separation, and duration at 50, you're looking at 226, 238 exhaust. It's going to be pretty great. It's not going to be super choppy. We're looking for some mid-range. We want this thing to really do everything well. So sometimes in drifting, road racing, street driving, on a little bit of that oomph down low, it should be great. I still think we're going to be able to add, even though we're going to give a little bit of peak power up with this camshaft, I think with the heads that are going on, we're still going to make the 425 number. Anytime you're installing a camshaft, give it a quick wipe down, and then plenty of assembly lube. Comes out of a bag, so it's generally pretty perfect, but just in case. I like a nice sticky assembly lube. It's going to hang on there if you don't get this thing fired up immediately, which is our plan, but again, it doesn't hurt. It's going to hang on there for that initial crank and start, just in case you get, like, you know, the numbers wrong or the timing is off or anything that, you know, you could potentially do wrong. This kind of sticky lube is going to last a little bit longer and hopefully wipe off a little bit slower. We've got those fresh cam bearings. We don't want to run those suckers dry right off the bat. That would be a shame. Ooh. Okay. Camshafts are the best. I feel like, you know, they really sort of set the tone for the character of the engine. And this thing's going to be like just your good all-American, all-around dude. Does everything great. Kind of, you know, the neighbor you had in high school where your mom was like, why can't you be more like Brad? Brad does good in school and he mows the lawn. And you're like, you've been up for 2 days working on your car. You smell like the inside of a tailpipe. And you're like, Mom, You don't understand me. Anyway, this one's Brad. Say hi to Brad. All right, I'm gonna install this Summit Racing cam retainer plate, get a fresh one. This is like a wear item because the cam rides directly on this hardened plate. It does a good job of just keeping the cam from moving forward and back. It's a big step up from the old school designs that either rely on the chain or like a cam button thing. The later 350s have a plate like this, kind of, but these are awesome. I'm torquing these to 1 karate. Is that we're gonna get this thing fired up real quick and easy because we're gonna use one of those carburetors. All right, so just to recap, we're gonna have new cam bearings, new cam, new oil pump, new timing set. It's gonna be pretty well refreshed. Cylinders look great, rings are probably fine. Main and rod bearings on the crankshaft seem okay. This thing's gonna jam, I promise. Hold her tight. Got it? I don't want to put my hand in here.
Really on there, huh?
It appears that it's pretty on there.
Warm it up.
Yeah, I don't want to put. The last thing I want to do in this heat is put a torch on anything. Well, let's do it. I'm gonna try to just warm up the sleeve, theoretically. Expand a little bit. Come on out. Although I think I recently saw a thing that was like, actually, it'll expand and get bigger, so it'll grab it harder, but heat seems to work. Argue about that in the comments. Let me know where we wind up.
Doesn't make any sense.
Hit it.
Yeah.
Hold it. Nailed it. Oh, and it's hot. Cool.
So now you
That made it fun. I'm getting my 2-jaw one. BRB. Take 2. Sweating to the oldies in here. Here we go. I've got my old 2-jaw puller here. This thing does all right. Barb's out there cleaning that oil pan. I would show you that, but he's actually stark naked. It's that hot here. It's not really that kind of shop, but you know, who am I to tell him what to do? And here we go. There she is. It's time to upgrade our timing set. We're going to use this Summit roller piece. I've already got the crank sprocket on. You can put this in like 10 different orientations that wind up like, you know, 6 degrees advanced or 6 degrees retarded. We're going to put it straight up and down. The cam has 3 degrees advanced built into it. We ran out of memory card when I put this lower sucker on, but basically it went like this. Put this on, tap, tap, tap. Beautiful. It's like a reenactment. So ready? Here it goes again. It went like
tap, tap, tap. Beautiful.
You're not missing anything. All right. We've got the upper sprocket here. It's got this Torrington bearing on the back, which I think helps stuff spin good. I like that a lot. However you slide on the timing gear onto this Woodruff key, then you'll work with the corresponding mark to line up to the camshaft. We are just going to go to 0, so that's the 0 mark, but if I had put this on R2, I'd have slid it over, and this would line up straight up and down with the camshaft. So you've got your regular mark here, engine is the top dead center, and I'm just going to make sure that when I find this camshaft and get her bolted in, these 2 suckers are lined right up. Just 2 dots, dot to dot, very simple. Gonna put a little bit of Loctite, blue Loctite, that's the stuff you can eventually get off, on the cam retainer bolts, and send this sucker home. Torque them with the wink, and we're good. All right, now I'm going to put on fresh oil pump, make sure this thing doesn't starve for oil with all the shenanigans I'm going to be doing. So this is just a replacement oil pump from Summit M295. The Summit number is SUM 121170. And if you don't know, these run off the front of the crankshaft. Nothing on here. It's a machine surface to a machine surface. No O-ring, no nothing. Kind of wiggle it around until it finds the teeth on that crank sprocket. There it is. Rotate it too far. A little wiggle. And there we go. Okay, so this oil pump needs to be perfectly centered around the crankshaft, and you can see it's got a little bit of movement in it, and that's on purpose. There's a special tool you can get that would like center it on there. I don't have that. I'll show you a cool little trick. If you're going to replace your LS oil pump, you just need a little bit of patience, and I have just a little bit of patience. So get it just tight enough that it can move, but it'll hold a position. Then grab your crank bolt, thread it in here. So we'll just give it one spin around, once around the horn. Okay, you can see the pump. I'm going to move it here, and it will kind of center itself up. Go a couple times just for good measure. So right there, that sucker should be TDC. Beauty. All right, so now before anything moves, come in here. So that's how I do it. If you want to complain about it, it's actually on the Melling website. I think they're like the biggest oil pump manufacturer in the universe. And they say this is perfectly acceptable. Torque those suckers down, don't break them off. Squint into the distance, really feel it, and we're done. I am just loading up one of the lifter trays with a set of fresh Summit Racing hydraulic roller lifters. These trays are what keep the rollers oriented to the camshaft. A roller has to stay perpendicular to the camshaft lobe, and this thing is basically got to see these flats, and these flats they keep these suckers in line. You take this whole thing over here. I've had these things soaking in oil, so they go in nice and lubricated. And I will just lock them in like that, bolt them down, good to go. Some people say soak your new lifters in oil. Some people say it doesn't do anything. I figure why not do it? Can't hurt. Plus it's a fun way to make a huge mess. It's got that going for us. Covered in oil makes it nice and easy. And then I came through here before and just gave everything a little bit of oil, but all right, same thing here, a little bit of a wiggle. Wiggle, 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 find your home. There you go. Put the bolts in, call it a day. This is going to be probably a naturally aspirated motor for a long time. So I actually went in the back, I found some head gaskets that are basically the smallest bore. A lot of head gaskets wind up being 4060 or some giant bore. You're going to lose a lot of compression in there from all that extra volume. You don't need it, you don't want it. I don't know what these are. I can tell you the part number on them is DC176.ML. Don't know what they are. I know that they're big enough for the 3.89 bore of the LS1. These are 4050. And a lot of the other ones we were finding were just much bigger for the bigger engines. So this is going to keep our compression rocking and rolling, and you'll see why I need that in a second. And as long as you've got at least, like I said, that 3.9 bore of the LS1, these will work awesome for you. So I just dropped on our Summit Cathedral Port heads. I think these are a pretty new design. These are basically better than every stock head and still super affordable. This is what they call an adz cast design. It's not some crazy CNC, but it still flows a ton of air. It's got 202 intake valves, 160 exhaust valves. Those are big. That's why you need at least the 3.9 bore of the LS1 or any of the bigger 6-liters would work. These are a killer alternative if you were like, you bought a short block from a junkyard. You don't have to start looking for like, old stock heads and then put on springs that'll work and new valve seals and have the machine make sure they're flat. These are killer. These are 64cc combustion chambers, so they're going to raise the compression like probably half a point, which is great. That's why I kept those really tight head gaskets on them. We're trying to get this compression as high as possible to make all that naturally aspirated power we can. These springs are already good for 600 lifts, so I don't have to like change them, mess with them, pay to get them replaced, any stuff like that. I think it's a pretty great head, and it's 210 cc intake and 82cc exhaust port. That's pretty big. These are going to outflow basically every stock Cathedral Port head. So it's a great piece, and for like a little over 600 bucks fully loaded, it's a good deal. One last woof for good luck. Send it home. All right, now we're going to torque this one down, keep on rocking. Time to finish off the Valvetrain. I've got my factory rockers upgraded with that Summit trunnion bearing kit, and a set of Summit Racing hardened push rods. These are 7/400 length. We've gone through and already checked that they are right. There's a lot of things that go into push rod length, like if the motor's ever been decked or if the compressed head gasket thickness is different, rocker pedestal height, all these things. So you got to make sure you get it right. It's a whole, there's tons of information on it, but take your time and get it right. These are 7/400. They just happen to be stock length. LS uses this rail here. The rockers sit on a nice rail. It's very rigid, works good, holds true at high RPM. They're very controlled. Another big upgrade of this sucker. I'm gonna do just a little bit of assembly lube right here so that at startup everything is fully lubricated. These are hardened 5/16 push rods that are 105 wall, so they are, I can stand on these suckers, they won't bend, which is good because I'm gonna stand on this car's gas pedal probably a lot. I'm gonna lay these rockers on and tighten these all down, and be back to you in a second. All right, we've got the LS1 long block fully assembled now. We're gonna do a couple things to get this sucker ready for the dyno and see how much power this thing really makes. I'm super excited. I wanna hear it. I wanna see those numbers. Can we make 100 more horsepower? Let's find out. So Barb got all antsy in the pantsy when I was gone the other day, and he put on these new Excel coils on these Summit valve covers with a set of MSD wires. And we're about ready to fire this thing up, believe it or not. And how are we gonna fire up an LS on an engine stand? Well, we're gonna use a carburetor because, you know, they're simple and they work awesome. So we're gonna get over here now. This is the setup we're gonna run on the dyno. Again, it's very simple to get it running. Holly makes a sweet single plane carb manifold, and we are gonna run a proper 750 double pumper on this thing. It's like a time warp back to awesome times. All right, so this is Holly's carb LS manifold. This is the medium height single plane part number 300-132. I'm gonna install the O-rings that make up the intake gaskets on an LS manifold. They come just in a pile. Got a little bit of Vaseline on my hands, which I just have all the time. Now I'm just gonna stick these in here. And the reason we're running on a carburetor is it's just gonna take us about 5 minutes to get it running, which is great. We could obviously do EFI on here and really dial it all in, but that would take a while. And for the dyno, we don't need it. Carburetors make horsepower, and that's what we want. I'm also working on our new, to us, old industrial workbenches that I got at a local auction house for like a factory that was closing down. These things are sweet. They could tell some stories, I bet. It's better than, I know you've seen us working on fold-up tables for the last year and a half, and I thought it was maybe time to splurge $18 a piece and get my hands on a couple of sweet workbenches. How much, what do you get these for? 6 for $200 or whatever? Also, if anyone needs them, I had to buy 6 of them. Hit me up. We'll make you a deal on a couple more of these. Right, I'm gonna drop this manifold on, line it up on those big old cathedral ports. It comes with a bunch of bolts and washers, so I'll just go with one of each. Holly in the front, giant vacuum port in the back. It's an LS, so it fits both ways, so get it right. So we are gonna get this thing pre-lubed, throw the carburetor on it, wire it up and get it fired up right here on the engine stand, because we can. We're gonna take it to the dyno tomorrow, but we wanna make sure it makes a little pressure, we'll make sure it runs. Really, we wanna just see this sucker fire up. Here's some chop. Make sure it's legit. Have some fun here. It's not all serious. You can fire it up on the stand, why not? Do it up. Cool. Intake manifold's tightened down. I'm dropping on the Holly 750 double pumper XP line. Carburetor extraordinaire that we keep around and put on everything. Runs good on literally everything. I'll bolt it down and then we will do a couple minutes of wiring. Fire this sucker up. Well, we're gonna pre-lube it because we learned that the hard way on this one Lincoln that you guys might know about. They had this fancy engine. Remember that, Barb?
I sure do, buddy.
Bought this real fancy built 4-valve engine.
Yeah.
And put it together and ran it on the dyno. That's bad news, bears.
Isn't it?
It is, but this is a lot of material. And it said 7 PSI oil pressure the whole time. And when you revved it up, it went down.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, that can't be right.
Wow.
Guess what? It was right.
Just a bad sensor.
Anyway, before we start this engine up, we're going to pre-lube this sucker and make sure it's got adequate lubrication. All right, we're going to run a set of Shorty 4-into-1 Hooker Blackheart stainless headers on this thing. I want to like stick them up in some ignorant fashion because we're going to fire it up on the stand, but it actually won't let us do that with the way these will run right into the coils. So let's all pretend it's wilder than it is. All right, Stone,
Yes, sir.
hit me. Gasket me up.
Alrighty. Sneaker in there. Got that side. Let me slap this side on.
Yeah, I can give you a hand if you want, or you can go for it. It's been just me and Barb the last 2 months or so since Zimmy rolled out and went to build fancy hot rods, and we have been busting our butts. It's been late nights every night. It's been intense. We did a little bit of a feeler out on social media for a new dude, and we found him. Stone Harley Sheets. This is our guy. He's gonna be hanging around a bunch, helping work on cars. Really what I was like, hey, does anyone else also have like a NASCAR inspired dog box 406 powered 55 Chevy with sort of like fender well headers into boom tubes? And that actually is this guy. We're excited. He's gonna be kicking around here for a while, and we'll hopefully get a lot more done.
Hopefully.
And you said you do like pizza, right?
Love pizza.
Okay, good. God, just had a check.
And we put it on backwards again.
Well, that's. Oh man,
We're batting
it's a big we in that one. All right, so you need a proper controller to run the LS ignition. There's no distributor. I'm going to run this MSD LS series ignition controller. It's very straightforward. It has a little harness that picks up the cam and crank sensors. It will actually decide if it's 58 or 24X, which is like Gen 3 or Gen 4. Right in this sucker, you don't need to tell it. There's no configuration. And then it will output to the coils, and it clips right into the LS factory ignition coil. So it's very straightforward. Power and ground. I twisted this sucker to LS1 high output, and we'll see what it does. We'll hook up that map sensor probably later or never. Here we go. We're gonna pre-lube this sucker. First thing I'm gonna do is put in about 5 quarts. Just pour it right down the gullet. And then we'll do 1.5 quarts of pre-lubing it, right? All right, so we wanna make sure that this thing gets oil everywhere before we crank it and fire it up. It's called the pre-lubrication. There is a plug right here in the LS. The output of the oil pump is right here, and this is the rail that it feeds. So if you come in here with just a garden sprayer, that's what we're gonna use, pumped up full of 1.5 quarts of oil, jam it in here. Not only is it gonna feed back to prime the oil pump, but then it's gonna go forward and go through all the main bearings, rod bearings, and through the camshaft and everything, and then this is gonna be ready to fire up with no early wear, which is great. All right, so I'm just threading in what's essentially like a gauge adapter. It's an M16 fitting with an 1/8 NPT drilled out in the top of it. So I can tighten this up, flush, and then we can pump that oil in. Good. There's 1.5 quarts of oil in this garden sprayer. Locking it in. There it goes. So it'll do that. Oh yeah, she's pumping it full of good vibes and horsepower. All right, so I pre-lubed this thing. I'm gonna pull out this 1/8 MBT fitting. I'm gonna put a gauge in there so we can see what kind of oil pressure it has, and run a couple wires and get ready to fire this thing up. So I'm gonna hook up a battery to the starter and then run just power and ground to that LS box, the MSD ignition box. Barb's got his son here. He just turned 4. So Uncle Tony's going to show him how to start up an engine with a screwdriver. Hold on. We're almost there. When you ready?
Yeah.
We're going to fire it up. You're going to stay a little bit further away. Give me a high five. Okay.
Now back here,
Let me
buddy.
back out this way a little bit. What are you going to say, though? What are you going to say? Fire it up!
Say it loud.
All right.
Fire it up!
All right, you ready? You give me a pound, then I'll do it. Or, you ready? Just for safety's sake. It's an engine. How'd you put that time you said on there? All right, when you're putting these on, one of them says driver, one of them says passenger. It's important that they go on the right sides. You ready? It's gonna be good this time. Go. That's better. 50. Nice. Let's go, bud. That's what I'm talking about. Fired up, sounds great, idled awesome, 50 PSI oil pressure right off the bat. Didn't overheat it. Found an issue and figured it out in 2 seconds, no problem. Here we go. Good day. Awesome. Oh, and how was it? You were like, no big deal, whatever. Just uncorked LS on the stand. It's a whole new morning. We're here at Wilson Race Engines. These guys build super burly drag race motors, all sorts of hot stuff, and some dirt track stuff too, but the one common factor is that they're all super nasty. This is where we brought our SP2 motor. It did 811 horsepower on their dyno. Really grumpy Jenkins old dyno, which is, you know, obviously a PA legend. So we love this spot. We brought the LS1 down. We obviously got it fired up last night. Once those guys get that thing strapped down, we're gonna let that LS1 sing and see if we're able to add 100 horsepower with a set of affordable cylinder heads and a camshaft. So we're looking for like 425 or more horsepower. That would be 100 over stock, and that would be killer. All right, so we are just setting up, making sure that the coils are right in the MSD box and going through the different tables so we have an idea of what we're looking at. 42, 40, 44. LS1 runs out to 40. These are, it's map on the side here, and over here we've got ignition advance. And then it's got an engine versus coolant temperature, all basic stuff. We can bump that up a little bit in case it gets hot. It won't pull any timing. It might need to spin it a couple times to auto set up 24X, or even like just initially.
Yep. Great. Now left.
LS1 sounds killer. It's the motor that came with the car. It's very unknown to us. We dug in, it looks pretty good. We'll see if it holds together and then hopefully makes
Sounds great.
425 plus.
How high do you think this thing will run?
I would think with this cam in it, it'd probably make power to 7.
Okay.
Similar cam to my 5.3, right? That
Yeah.
thing loves 7,000 RPM.
Yeah. Get zero real fast.
Real good, yeah, real good. Yeah.
You ready?
Go get it. Let's do one.
Okay. I'll make a short pull.
Short pull. That's on our conservative timing map. That's like 32 degrees total. We'll see what it did so far.
It's almost 500 right there.
Say what now?
473 right there.
What did it make? 473? All right, 473 horsepower on a dyno that is historically not giving you an inch.
No.
Hell yeah.
This might make 500.
What?
Okay.
All right, so this sucker made 473 horsepower already, smashing all goals. These heads are killer. Clearly this package is working great. Really, we're on our conservative ignition map, and we haven't taken it over 6,100 RPM yet. Chris is going to pull a plug. You read the band and see how much timing it wants or needs, or how close we are to being maxed out on timing, and then we'll make adjustments from there. But I'm already wicked stoked. 473 horsepower, and basic head setup, very affordable head setup, and a camshaft. That's rad.
Yeah. It's right on the bend. So when you get to there, like right in the bend is like pretty much optimal, but the motor's a little rich, it looks like.
So you can see where down the band this line is, and more or less the appropriate amount of timing for your engine would have it sort of right where it is. Like, that mark can be right at the top of the electrode here. Or the,
Yeah, it doesn't want any more.
You don't think?
No.
Yeah. And it does look fat, but that could be from a super rich idle setup, and we'll run it again. I think we're just gonna run it again if it does.
It's fat.
It's fat.
See.
So instead of doing like an O2, which would sniff the exhaust composition, he's dialed in to just check out the brake-specific fuel consumption, like I said. So you have what? Some kind of like a meter on the actual fuel flow.
Yeah, it's got a fuel flow, and it measures fuel flow, compares this to what it pulls against the brake. So it averaged 185 pounds of fuel an hour, and the brake specific was 4.8. An ideal condition in one of these is somewhere around 4.6.
So we're a little fat,
4.7,
but close.
you know, with like 100 and it's pretty efficient. I could tell you with that number.
Yeah.
You know, like if it was an earlier, like an older Chevy motor, they're like 228, 230.
Way more. Yeah, yeah.
Way more fuel
To make the
to
same power.
make the less power. Actually, you know, the motor's more. This motor's more efficient.
Yeah.
So-
It's rocking. Translation: this thing rocks.
I'm saying. Where's that? 481.
Okay.
That's what I think.
We'll take that all day. And we didn't go nuts with the cam because I want it to be pretty drivable.
No, and it's very flat. So 481 looks like an ideal number. But I like look how much torque it's got and how long it carries that torque.
This thing's gonna be
mean,
great.
this thing's a stick shift. It's going to be pretty fun to drive.
Because I want to be able to, you know, rip it around the street, take it to the track, also do some drifting with it. That meaty power band for drifting will be nice.
Better. It's way better. Nah. 486. I was pretty close.
Whoa.
Hell yeah. Wow. Awesome.
I see.
487.8 at 6600. It just keeps going.
Yeah, it's very flat. See, that number is very
That's
flat
awesome.
across you there. So
Yep.
that means it's going to be very fast. I mean, how much does a C5 weigh?
3,000, 3,100.
I don't know.
It's like a 1070, right? 1080.
No.
1050?
Get out of here.
1050.
It's nothing, dude. There's no weight in there. Yeah, launching that car.
What do we do here?
Huh?
That's crazy. Okay. Cool. Awesome.
If you can get it down the track, that's what it'll go.
I mean, it makes 490 horsepower. This is 480, 488. That's absolute monster pickup over stock. You're talking about, we picked up 150 solid horsepower with head and cams. And straight out of the box, affordable cast heads. Awesome.
Off the shelf, everything.
Yeah. I think you have to turn the ignition on and let it sit for a minute, and then it'll go. It's got to learn.
Once it's going, it's happy as a clam.
Hit a rev limiter.
Yeah.
It's on there. I told you.
7,000.
7,000.
So you don't
Hit
need
it.
the
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, you don't need.
7,000. It was rolling over anyway.
Yeah.
490.
490 straight horsepower. That's man, that is killer.
Yeah, it hit the rev limiter at 6960, so 7,000 it
Yeah,
hit it.
it
So.
hit it.
That box works pretty good.
Sure does.
Real easy.
It took 1 second. I moved 1 point on that timing map. I was like, a little more, because it has like a little dip. I was like, let's give her that dip.
Yeah, see now the fuel curve's coming back around. It's brake specifics at 410s, 420. Did you put rings and bearings in this?
We put, no, we did not do that. We put cam bearings in it. If that makes you happy.
Okay.
Those are bearings.
It has bearings in it, yes. And it also has rings in it. I saw them. I mean, do you think it's worth doing anything? Little jet change or anything?
I don't think so. I think, in my opinion, I think it's pretty much
Call to win and get the hell out of here?
it makes very good power. It's very responsive, and the fuel curve is very flat.
Okay.
So I think it'll drive down the road very well. It doesn't leak oil, and it still starts and runs.
Yeah, all good things.
All the rods are still in it, so that's always a plus.
So what's our final proper numbers?
490.
490. 490 horsepower,
So-
man. And you say this is Grumpy Jenkins' old dyno.
Yeah.
And you say it doesn't give up anything.
No, it gives up 0.
He must like
It's
you.
a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
So like you could see, we made back-to-back pulls, and it moved 0.4 of a horsepower.
Wow, this thing's dialed.
So it's 464 in the average from start to finish. That's what it averages. You know, so
That's incredible.
464. There's your brake specific. 424,
Okay.
430. I think it's spot on. I mean,
Probably leave it alone, or you think it's good?
I would leave it alone. I mean, I would try it. Try it with the carburetor.
Okay. We can go drifting with a carburetor, right? We could do that. Hey, look, we have a fuel injection set up for it. We get in there and get it tuned. Or we could slap it in there with the carburetor on it, put some wedge jets in it, and probably be driving in a day. So that sounds pretty fun
And
to
then
me.
then that would be a good test for you, is run it with the carburetor.
Yeah.
And then put the fuel injection on it. I think you'll be happier with the carburetor.
I am honestly blown away.
That's very impressive for what it is.
That rips.
You
To
know,
all those
Awesome.
elevators out
Yeah.
there. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. Just a 500 horsepower street engine with a couple of parts on it, a couple of morons built in the garage.
Yeah.
that's
good.
impressive, man.
That's pretty good.
That makes you people want to build those things. That's why
Yeah,
all
of
that's
course.
why all the young kids want them.
All right, let's get off the dyno and take it in one piece.
Okay.
Sweet. All right, we are leaving Wilson Race Engines with an LS1 that makes near 500 horsepower. That means we added almost 175 horsepower to this thing with an affordable set of those Summit heads and a decent camshaft. That is unbelievable. This thing is an absolute animal. I think we might have to put it in the Corvette with a carburetor on it, because I know I want to be driving it immediately. Plus the tune is spot on. I love this thing. Let's get out of here and find some pizza and fireworks to celebrate. Let's go. We are at Pasquale's Pizza 4 in New London, PA. Last time we were at the Dyno, we hit this place up. Pizza is incredible. As you know, we say, stay tuned. It's a pizza team with a racing problem. T-shirt coming next week, by the way. And if you want, people have asked, you can buy a supply. There's a donate a supply button. These pizzas were donated by a couple of people that we appreciate big time. We've got Denise Prusy, thank you very much. The Craddock family said to get pizza and beers, but this is Pennsylvania and you can't do that in the pizza joint usually. But we'll try some, we'll get that later. And Brett Leary, so thanks so much. We're gonna dig in, and this has been an awesome day. Fireworks next. What more is there?
I don't think much.
Horsepower, fireworks, pizza. Fantastic, incredible. Great day, horsepower, pizza, fireworks. That's America, baby. So that is it for this episode of Stay Tuned. This motor absolutely is a ripper, near 500 horsepower, and we figured out if you bought an LS short block for like $1,000, totally doable, you could put this whole engine together long block style for about $3,000. $3,000 for 500 horsepower is bananas. It's America, it's July 4th, enjoy the holiday, exercise all of those freedoms, and we will see you guys next time. That was cool.
That was